Doc Rightwing here, and today I'd like to talk about the growing anti-Muslim sentiment. Now, it may surprise some of you, but I actually agree with the leftists that anti-Muslim sentiment is growing. What I disagree with is the idea that it's the American people's fault for that. But before I begin, a short disclaimer. I hate terrorism and people who support terrorism, not Muslims in general. No one should interpret this video as hate speech against Muslims in general. I hate terrorism, I hate Hamas, and I hate anyone who supports Hamas. But I do not harbor indiscriminate hatred towards all Muslims. And I'm not saying most Muslims are bad people. And I'm definitely not advocating for discrimination or hate or threats or anything like that against Muslims or any other group of people. I will always stand against indiscriminate hatred for any religious or ethnic group, including Muslims. To prove it, here's a Muslim who seems like a terrific person to me. She's a Muslim immigrant who's running against that piece of human garbage called Ilhan Omar to win her congressional seat.
I've seen the atrocities of Hamas terrorists. I've seen the houses, the burnt houses. You can smell it. It's a place of destruction. And whoever says that Hamas is, these people are freedom fighters, no. Freedom fighters don't do that. Freedom fighters don't hunt kids, don't hunt women and elderly from house to house and room to room. Mm-hmm. I've seen it. I bear witness to what happened. And whoever supports these terrorists don't belong to the United States of America, the land of the free.
Isn't she great? I'd vote for that. That said, here's a fact that should be obvious to everyone. Anti-Muslim sentiment is going to grow every time a radical Islamic terrorist group executes innocent infidels who don't ascribe to their twisted religious beliefs. Hamas decapitated infants in the name of Allah, folks. So yeah, anti-Muslim sentiment is naturally going to grow after that. It's simply human nature. And even if it's the wrong way to feel, those feelings are going to naturally occur. If that offends you, consider how you'd feel if a radical Christian group decapitated the children of a bunch of Muslims. And then you saw large groups of Christians right here in America holding rallies supporting the terrorists. If that were to happen, it would be completely natural to have some negative feelings about Christianity. Secondly, the media is feeding us the idea that lots of American Muslims are not disgusted by the inhuman atrocities committed by Hamas on October 7th. Hamas tortured, killed, and mutilated innocent women and children simply because they were born Jewish, and any decent human being would hate that as much as they hate Hitler and the Nazis. It was grotesque and evil, and if you don't hate it, you're a terrible person, plain and simple. But is the media showing you Muslims that stand with Israel? Is the media showing you Muslims who hate the Hamas terrorists? No, they aren't. And to prove my point, let me show you what some Google searches produce. I googled CNN Muslim, and the first two results are stories with Muslims expressing anti-Israel sentiment. I googled CNBC Muslim, and one of the top hits was talking about the mob of Muslims who ran through the Russian airport looking for some Jews to maim or kill. In fact, searching Fox News Muslim was the only search that showed a Muslim who stood against radical Islamic terrorism. But they've devoted far more time to people wearing hijabs, holding pro-Hamas signs that say, "From the river to the sea" and the like. So Fox News is really no different than CNN or the others. In short, in the wake of this horrific terrorist attack by a radical Islamic terrorist group, the media is showing us far more anti-Israel Muslims than they're showing us anti-Hamas Muslims. But we Americans hate to see radical Islamic terrorism, like the attack we endured on 9/11. We hate to see Jews slaughtered like the Nazis did in World War II. And we hate to see Muslims in America taking the side of Hamas. So this biased, misleading amplification of the pro-Hamas Muslim voice will obviously cause anti-Muslim sentiment to grow. And that's not the fault of the American people, it's the fault of the American corporate media. And I can hear people disagreeing with me, claiming that these protests are in support of Palestine. so they don't support Hamas. But a majority of Palestinians voted for Hamas in the 2006 elections. And here is the result of a poll I found while preparing this video. Only 49% of Palestinians say suicide bombings are rarely or never justified. Suicide bombings, people. Obviously, if you have a shred of humanity in you, suicide bombings are never justified. But only half of the Palestinian people agree with that statement. And I suppose that explains why they elected Hamas, a radical Islamic terrorist group, to govern them. So supporting Palestine is, in my opinion, the same as supporting Hamas, especially after the war crimes of October 7th. And you may not agree with that perspective, but it's how a lot of people feel. So shoving those pro-Palestine Muslims in our face isn't going to make us feel too warm and fuzzy about Muslims in general. I'll conclude with this appeal to the media. If you actually want to reduce anti-Muslim sentiment, maybe you should show us more Muslims like this woman and less like this. And that's all for now, folks.